Joshua Fournier is one of the hardest working comedians in New Mexico. Blending his passion for comedy with his native heritage, Joshua delivers stand up performances that are truly unique. Tonight, we discuss what drives him, how his journey in comedy started, and what the future has in store for him.
Do it. So I am glad to have you on the show. It's the comedy episode. So
Oh,
our
sweet.
July issue is the comedy issue, and I was like, okay, I gotta get Josh on. So,
Heck yeah.
how did it begin with you? How did comedy come into your universe?
All right. So I've told this story quite a bit, but I mean, I've always been a fan of comedy, you know what I'm saying? Especially growing up kind of where we grew up, the res thing. There's not really much to be happy about. And so you're always making jokes, talking shit. But no, comedy's just always been, I think, a part of my life for the longest I can remember. Like even when I was a kid, like when we left the res, we moved to Albuquerque, and my mom had this boyfriend, and he had like a stack of the book of CDs. You know what I mean? I would go and steal CDs from him sometimes because he never noticed. And I stole a Kings of Comedy CD. It was like the Kings of Comedy, Bernie Mac, Steve Harvey, Cedric the Entertainer, and D.L. Hughley. And I remember listening to that. I remember listening to like Bernie Mac and be like, "Whoa, this is insane!" Like he's just talking people a lot, and I was just infatuated with it. And so as a kid, that was as a kid, and it just, I don't know, it just like intrigued me that people could talk and have just a pull on people. And then obviously as a kid, I was growing up, Dane Cook was like a huge thing, and I remember kids at the back of the bus being like, "Yo, listen to this," and they would play on the iPod shuffle loud, and it would just he would say stuff, and it just captivated people. And I was like, that's so weird, like that's such a weird thing to me. But I've just always been a huge fan of comedy. I would start like buying comedy DVDs from Walmart after that. But the first time I like started comedy, I was working at a strip club in Farmington, New Mexico.
There's a strip club in Farmington, New
Mexico. There was. It's not there anymore. They didn't like it, so they put up a sign outside our club that said like Jesus is always watching. And we put up a sign right on our side of the fence that said, if he's watching, he better start tipping. And yeah, I don't think the Lord liked that because he sent our building up in flames. So,
oh my God.
Yeah, dude. But before that, like I would get there, because I was one of the general managers there. So I'd get there at like 4:00 and like have to open up. And there would already be like these old men outside waiting, like 5 or 6 of them. And after a while, I was just like, hey, if I let you guys in this early, I won't charge you. But can I tell some jokes for you? And they were like, but it was like sort of telling jokes to your grandpa. You know what I'm saying? They're going to support and be happy for you regardless, even though the material sucked. But after that, I did it like 3 or 4 times after that. And then after that, I started telling like my buddy who worked at the bar in Farmington. I was like, hey, bro, I'm a comedian now. I do comedy. And he's like, you do comedy? I was like, yeah, dude, I'm actually pretty good. I'm a great comedian. And he's like, do you want to like do comedy after bands at this honky tonk bar? And I was like, yeah, let's go, dude. Oh, my first gig, let's go. And after like these country bands would get off stage, they're like, all right, coming up, Josh Fournier. And I would go up and like, what's up? I work at the strip club. And everyone in that town knew that. So like, fuck that club, dude, and fuck you. And yeah, they hated me from the jump, and I had to like fill time in between bands, and it was just death every time. But I did get good at roasting people, because then it just became like, fuck you. It's like, fuck you, you just met a band, you you gotta dance, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, so that was my start in comedy. And then I stopped after a while and focused on, but then the club burnt down, and then I had no excuse not to move to Albuquerque. Looked up open mics and just started regularly going to open mics like every night.
How did you evolve to the comedy you do now?
I think it's that thing. People always say you got to find your voice. Obviously you're inspired, you're influenced by people you look up to. But I think you really have to find your voice. And especially me being native, there's not a lot of like native comedians to like mold after, I guess. So it kind of works out in favor for me. So anything I do regarding native stuff is unique to me.
What's your overall career goal when it comes to your
I have goals. I have like small goals and big goals. Obviously, smaller goals is I want to perform at specific venues. I've done a lot of those this year. This last year, especially, like I want to perform in New York at a real comedy club. I got on the stand. Sweet, awesome. One of the big goals I had was I want to do the Comedy Store in LA. I got to do that, and I, smashed and did that. That's a cool little goal. I have specific people I want to open up for, which I've done a lot of those this year. But also, like I was like a end game. I don't know. I just want to do this and make a living doing it. I make money doing this, but like it's like every weekend on the road writing new material. Because yeah, you're right. Some people, they're literally just in this to get a free beer and hang.
You've been in the game for a while here in New Mexico. So have you seen at least an evolution, some
Yeah,
kind of, since you've started to now?
yeah, yeah. What when and my best friend Zach Abeda, he's another comedian, great comedian here out of Albuquerque. Um, we started literally like a day apart from each other. Like I started my first time in Albuquerque was at an open mic. Um, and Zach was an audience member at that show. The next night, which was on a Tuesday, he got on stage for the first time. And so we literally started like a day apart from each other. My first day here, he was in the audience. Second day, because he was just there to like check it out and see what comedy was about. And I was on stage and he saw me perform. The next night he started. When we first started, the scene that Albuquerque has now wasn't as established and wasn't as like supportive. I'll give it that. They're weird, but they do support each other. There's a lot more positivity now than there was when we started. Because when we started, a lot of the cats that were above us were more like gatekeepy, I guess. They were really like, oh, these guys are good, but we don't want them like
Well,
you're
yeah, they're
cool.
good. That's when it's a threat. It's almost a threat.
Yeah.
They're
And
good.
then
We got to keep an eye on them.
me and Zach were looking at these people do these shows, and at the time we were like, we want to do those shows. We want to do a brewery show. That looks like a lot of fun. There's an audience. It's not just an open mic. You're doing longer times. We want to do that. How do we get on these shows? And they were like, you just got to wait your turn. And they literally told us like, your card will get called when it gets called, sort of stuff. And then we started getting good, and people were starting to be like, "Oh, those guys are stuck up because they just hang out." No, it's not. We're stuck up. It's like nobody else liked us. Y'all were mean to us and pushed us away. So we started just hanging out with each other. I'm good enough to say I'm good. If you're 3 years in, you still suck. But that's comedy. You're gonna suck. You're gonna bomb. You're gonna feel like you did good, but really you didn't do good. Like that's in a couple years from now, you're gonna look back at that and be like, oh, gross. I thought that was good because I did that. I was doing that my first year. Write a lot. Don't get discouraged by bombing. Don't be scared to bomb. Bombing is important for growth, especially in comedy and just in life too. You gotta suck. You learn the best lessons when you fail. And comedy, there's a lot of failure. You fail in front of sold out audiences. You fail in front of your heroes. But that can't discourage you from. Don't be scared to like step out of your comfort zone because a lot of comics around here will do just shows for their friends. Funny's funny, so I think it is very important to step out of your comfort zone and be in front of new faces, new eyes, unbiased eyes. When you do a black room, where you've had three great black comics, and then you come on, you're like, "What's up?" Ooh, and you're not. You're not what they're used to. But if you can make those people laugh, sweet, you're funny. You can go to the South Valley where it's like, so full, high socks. I wear ankle socks always, dude. You know what I'm saying? Like, you make those people laugh, it's a good thing. And that's what you should be writing for. Is not writing for specific audiences. You should just be making sure your material crushes, making sure your material is good enough to where you can take it to those audiences and you're not changing too much of it, to where you're pandering, but you're just bringing your material how it is. It is what it is. You like it, cool. If not, sweet, just move on. Bombs. Yeah, so step out of your comfort zone. Yes, writing is important.
Well, Josh, thank you for taking time out to talk with me today. I greatly appreciate it.
Sweet, thank you so
It's
much.
nice to hear this insight. Finally, getting to talk to you and about you and your art. So I appreciate
Yes,
the time.
awesome. Thank you so much for having me. This is great.